Marcus Weller was the kind of father every neighborhood wished for, smiling, generous, and always wearing a Mickey Mouse shirt on the weekends. But when police forced open his bedroom door, they uncovered a horrifying secret that turned the beloved Disney dad into the darkest nightmare Maple Heights had ever known. Marcus Weller was the kind of father every child wished for. In the suburban town of Maple Heights, he was known by a nickname that stuck for years, Disney Dad. Every other weekend, like clockwork, his blue SUV would pull into the school parking lot with cartoon character decals on the windows and a backseat full of snacks, toys, and theme park brochures. Teachers smiled when they saw him. Other parents nodded in quiet approval. He was dependable, charming, and always appeared genuinely happy to be around his children. After his divorce from Rachel, his high school sweetheart, Marcus had made a visible effort to remain involved in his kids' lives. He never missed a school play, always brought cupcakes on birthdays, and showed up early to every parent-teacher conference. His home, a modest two-story house on Pinewood Lane, looked like something out of a family magazine. The lawn was always trimmed, the porch decorated for every season. Wind chimes played soft melodies in the breeze. Inside, the living room was filled with photos of smiling children, framed crafts from school, and rows of family movies. But while the ground floor of the home was welcoming and cheerful, no one ever saw the upstairs. Marcus kept that space private, claiming it was just messy or nothing interesting. No one questioned it. Why would they? The man had built a flawless reputation. To his children, Marcus was their weekend hero. He took them to amusement parks, built Lego castles with them, and let them eat pancakes for dinner. He was the dad who never raised his voice, never got angry, and always found a way to make them laugh. Even Rachel, though they were no longer close, admitted he was a good father. Their split had been amicable, and their co-parenting routine had worked smoothly for 4 years, but everything changed one rainy Friday afternoon. Marcus didn't show up. Rachel waited outside with packed bags and 2 confused children. She called his phone, no answer. Texted him, nothing. Hours passed. She assumed he had a flat tire or maybe forgot because of work. But when Saturday came and there was still no word, her concern deepened. It was completely out of character. Marcus never missed a weekend, not even when he was sick. By Sunday, worry turned into fear. The kids kept asking where their dad was, and Rachel didn't have an answer. She contacted his neighbors, but none had seen him since Tuesday. His car was still in the driveway, untouched. The mail was piling up. Something felt wrong, deeply wrong. On Monday morning, she called the police and requested a welfare check. She told them this wasn't like Marcus. He was responsible, punctual, and had never gone off the grid before. The responding officers didn't expect much. Maybe he was out of town or lost his phone. But when they arrived at the house, the moment they stepped onto the porch and caught the faint, metallic smell seeping from inside, they knew this wasn't a simple disappearance. Something terrible was waiting behind that door. When officers arrived at Marcus Weller's home, everything looked calm from the outside. The porch lights were still on, even though it was mid-morning. A few packages sat untouched by the door, damp from the rain. The mailbox was full. The grass had grown longer than usual, unusual for someone as meticulous as Marcus. There were no signs of a break-in, no broken windows or open doors. But something about the silence unsettled the officers. They knocked several times, called out his name, and even tried the doorbell. Nothing. The air on the porch felt heavier than normal. One officer peered through the side window but saw only the dim outlines of furniture and a flickering television. That had been left on, given the circumstances and Rachel's insistence that this behavior was completely out of character. The officers decided to force entry. The front door opened with a hard push, creaking loudly as it swung inward. Inside, the house felt abandoned. The usual cozy charm was still there: family photos, kids' shoes by the wall, artwork taped to the refrigerator, but everything was still, lifeless. On the dining table sat two small backpacks, carefully packed for a weekend trip, alongside a juice glass that had tipped over and dried into a sticky stain. Nothing had been touched in days. As they moved further into the home, they noticed a faint smell, an unmistakable metallic odor. They followed it toward the staircase. Each step creaked louder as they ascended, the smell growing stronger. The second-floor hallway was dim, with doors closed on both sides. At the very end was the master bedroom. The door was slightly ajar. One officer pushed it open carefully, hand on his weapon, ready for anything. What they found inside was beyond anything they had prepared for. Marcus Weller lay on the bed, lifeless, his wrists and ankles bound to the bedposts with what appeared to be heavy leather straps. His body showed signs of trauma, multiple bruises, lacerations, and swelling. The room had been altered in a disturbing way. The walls were covered in strange symbols and scribbles written in red ink, some resembling crude drawings, others repeating the same words over and over. "Order through pain," one phrase read, scrolled across the mirror. The bed sheets were soaked through, and the air was thick with the stench of blood and decay. The strangest part wasn't just the state of the body, it was the sense that the scene had been arranged intentionally. Nothing about it felt random or rushed. On a nearby table sat a camera tripod with no camera. The closet door was open, and inside, a large, locked metal chest caught their attention. Officers immediately secured the home and called for detectives, forensic teams, and a coroner. This was no accident, and it wasn't a suicide. The Disney Dad image had shattered instantly. Police knew this was just the beginning. Someone had wanted Marcus found like this. Someone had left behind a message and possibly a trail. As investigators began gathering evidence, they had no idea that what was hidden in that locked chest would reveal a side of Marcus Weller no one could have imagined. The metal chest found in Marcus Weller's closet was heavy and sealed with a thick padlock. Forensic investigators carefully removed it from the house and brought it to the station for examination. No one was prepared for what they were about to uncover. When the lock was finally cut, the lid creaked open to reveal a disturbing collection of items. Inside were dozens of labeled USB drives, several notebooks filled with Marcus's handwriting, and a few sealed envelopes marked with strange symbols matching those found on the bedroom walls. It was clear this was not just random clutter. These items had been organized, preserved, and hidden deliberately. The notebooks were filled with cryptic journal entries, obsessive lists, and detailed observations. There were sections where Marcus had written the same phrase repeatedly, clean on the outside, chaos underneath. One journal in particular stood out. It contained references to a group he called the Mirror Room, a name unknown to investigators at the time. It wasn't clear whether this was an actual place, an online forum, or simply a fictional idea Marcus had created. What was clear, however, was that he was documenting something sinister. The USB drives were sent to the digital forensics lab. Technicians spent hours recovering and reviewing the files. The contents were deeply disturbing. Some videos showed Marcus, alone, performing elaborate reenactments of violent scenes. Others featured blurred faces of unknown individuals, some consenting, some seemingly unaware. The footage was carefully edited, stored by date, and accompanied by typed notes explaining what each video was intended to represent. These were not random clips. Each one seemed to serve a purpose in Marcus's personal archive of chaos. More alarming were the references to specific times, locations, and even names. Investigators cross-referenced those details and discovered that several of the dates matched unsolved missing persons cases from nearby counties. One file included a brief, shaky clip of a young woman entering what appeared to be a basement she was never seen leaving. Her name, it turned out, was the same as a college student reported missing 6 years earlier. The deeper authorities dug, the more disturbing it became. Marcus had hidden this double life for years, blending his ordinary suburban routine with a secret obsession that spiraled into something darker. There were signs that he was communicating with others, mentions of usernames, private channels, and cryptic digital symbols. One name kept recurring, Miramask78. That alias appeared in message logs, drive folders, and even in Marcus's handwritten notes, but then came the most chilling twist. As investigators continued analyzing the USB drives, they discovered that 5 files had been remotely deleted just days before the body was found. It wasn't an error or glitch, it was a deliberate action, carried out using remote access software. This meant someone else had access to Marcus's hidden world. Someone knew what was on those drives and wanted it gone. The police no longer believed Marcus acted alone. His death wasn't just a tragic end to a man with dark secrets. It was a calculated silencing. And whoever had been watching him was still out there, with the discovery that files had been remotely deleted from Marcus Weller's USB drives after his death. The investigation took a sharp turn. Authorities now knew they were dealing with more than just one man's descent into darkness. Someone else had been involved, someone with access, someone careful, and most of all, someone still free. The recurring username Miramask78 became the focal point of the search. Digital forensics traced the online activity linked to this alias across a variety of platforms, including encrypted forums and indexed websites known to harbor disturbing content. The more they found, the clearer it became, this was no ordinary online presence. It was methodical, deeply embedded, and had been communicating with Marcus for years. The breakthrough came when investigators identified an old email address connected to the Miramask78 handle. That address had once been registered to a man named Derek Hall, a former co-worker of Marcus from nearly a decade earlier. Back then, both men had worked for a private home security firm, installing surveillance systems and custom access networks. They had parted ways when Marcus left the company to start his own business. Derek, on the other hand, had all but disappeared, changing jobs, locations, and eventually his name. He was now living under a new identity in a remote part of Ohio. Having legally changed his name 2 years prior following a minor identity theft charge, police moved quickly. Surveillance confirmed Derek was still active online, though far more cautious than Marcus had been. When they finally moved in and executed a search warrant, what they found mirrored Marcus's secret stash almost exactly: hidden drives, journals, custom-coded software, and a wall covered in newspaper clippings and encrypted symbols. Derek didn't deny knowing Marcus, but he claimed they had drifted apart years earlier. The digital evidence told a different story. In Derek's files, investigators found full transcripts of conversations between the two men, detailing not only their shared ideology but specific plans, projects, and even references to cleanup measures. One entry from Derek's journal read, "He's cracking. Says he wants to quit. That's not part of the plan." Another chilling line simply stated, "If the outside world finds out, everything burns." It became clear that Marcus had grown unstable in the final months. His journals showed internal conflict, guilt, fear, a desire to end his involvement. Authorities believed Marcus may have been preparing to go to the police, or at least distance himself from Derek and the network they had built together. That made him a liability. While Derek maintained that he hadn't seen Marcus in years, GPS data from his phone placed him near Maple Heights just 2 days before the body was discovered. Forensic evidence tied Derek to the remote deletion of Marcus's files, and his DNA was found on the leather straps used to restrain Marcus. With mounting pressure and a growing list of charges, Derek was formally arrested for conspiracy, obstruction, and first-degree murder. Still, he refused to speak of the others involved. Marcus's death, it turned out, was not just the end of a life, but the unraveling of a network. and the search for its remaining members had only just begun. As the dust settled in Maple Heights, the image of Marcus Weller as the cheerful Disney dad was forever shattered. The smiling man who handed out candy at Halloween and attended every parent-teacher meeting had lived a double life so dark that many in the community couldn't bring themselves to speak his name. The news spread quickly, consuming local headlines and then gaining national attention. But while the town tried to move forward, investigators continued to untangle the layers of deception Marcus had constructed over years. With Derek Hall in custody, the investigation widened. Digital records revealed references to online meetups, code names, and hidden forums. What Marcus and Derek had built wasn't just a private exchange of disturbing content, it was part of a structured system. Authorities discovered that the mirror room Marcus often wrote about was an encrypted server where members shared files, stories, and footage. Some of it was fictional. Some of it wasn't. Forensic teams worked around the clock to trace IP addresses and aliases connected to the network. Several users were located in different parts of the country, and warrants were issued in 3 states. Multiple arrests followed, and with each one came more revelations. One of the most shocking discoveries was a list of names and coordinates saved on one of Marcus's hard drives, places authorities believe were previously used for filming or meeting with other group members. Among those names was one that matched a girl who had been missing for 7 years. Her case had gone cold long ago, but evidence recovered from one of the listed locations confirmed a connection. DNA samples, pieces of fabric, and a small silver pendant matched items from her missing person file. Investigators now believe she may have been one of several victims Marcus and his associates had lured into their circle, using manipulation and staged video projects as cover for real harm. Rachel, Marcus's ex-wife, gave a short public statement, asking for privacy and pleading for people to remember that their children were still young and innocent. She moved out of Maple Heights within a month, taking the children with her. They had been spared the horrific details, at least for now. But in time, questions would come, and answers would have to be given. The community held vigils not for Marcus, but for the victims his secrets had consumed. The case triggered a wave of new policies related to digital crime units and the tracking of encrypted online forums. Lawmakers referenced the Disney Dad case during congressional hearings about internet safety and psychological screening for people working in home security or digital surveillance. Even now, parts of Marcus's story remain unexplained. Not all names on the list have been identified, and several files remain encrypted, their contents hidden. Some believe there are more members still out there, watching, waiting. The truth behind the smile of Marcus Weller, the man who fooled an entire town, is a chilling reminder that evil doesn't always look like a monster. Sometimes it looks like a neighbor, a volunteer, a father. Sometimes it looks like the safest person in the room.